Welcome to the Warren Cycling Podcast. My name is Dean Warren. I'm in Sarasota, Florida today.
And I'm Randy Warren, and I'm in Asheville, North Carolina.
Wait, it's not showing up, is it? There it is.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. number 2, right? They're still
Well,
number 2, Michigan.
They're 2 ranked, but that's a subjective system. So they're number 1 in the Big Ten, and that's objective. So they have this. The record with Georgia's, they're just same.
Georgia's really good. It'll be difficult, but they have to get to that game anyway. This is not college football. It's just a couple guys from Michigan, go blue, and not Lions are doing better, but not quite good enough yet to talk about them. But no, we're talking about bicycle racing because a lot of fun stuff has been going on, and this is the Warren Cycling Podcast, episode 310. It's the 6th of December. I got the date right today, 2022. But we're going to talk about the Champions League on the track, cyclocross World Cup and Nationals coming up in the U.S. And that's most of it. I guess got a few tidbits here and there of other things to interject. So, but let's start out with, because I tried to see if Jennifer Valente could join us today, but she's busy. So I don't know if she's traveled back already to the U.S. But wow. She's followed up her Olympic gold medal, her world championship. And so those weren't flukes at all, because she's the Champion League, the champion on the track. The second year now they've run this series of track events. They started in Mallorca, went to Berlin. They're in France, and then they finished off with 2 nights in London, which, wow, it was Jennifer is leading since the beginning, but Kate Archibald seemed like she was catching up, and then to have like the home crowd behind her might have been really difficult, but Jennifer stayed consistent and she pulled it off, didn't she?
Yeah, I was going to look to see. I think it was in Manchester the first night, and then it was at the Olympic Velodrome the second night. I'm not positive. I think so. And so actually that's interesting too, because Manchester is a little bit outside of London, and so but has a big following for events.
It's a little ways from London, Manchester is.
Yeah, 45 minutes, I think, right?
Well, I think it's further than that.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Well, I've never been there, so I'm not sure. But but I do believe that if it is in both those, they each have a huge following. So
I thought they were both in London when I saw them.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I just checked. 4 and 5, huh?
Yeah.
Seems to me like it would have been anyway. So.
Yeah, sure. But no, big probably British supporting crowd, and Jennifer.
It was a huge crowd. I mean, it was I watched some of the video, and it was because in the men's sprint competition, it was very, very dramatic. No, she wasn't the sprint competition. It was the
That's because she's the endurance champion.
No. But it was in the men's endurance. It was a very dramatic race. So I watched the finish because it came down to the last 2 riders, and apparently the one guy got a couple bike length gap, and it looked like it was all over. And then the British guy clawed him back and got on his wheel and passed him out of turn 4 and just barely beat him. So, but the crowds were hugely rambunctious and very loud, and it was a raucous crowd. But I think it only fits like 4,000.
Probably unlike at the World Cup in Qatar, they probably allow beer to be sold at those cycling events. Yeah.
But I'm guessing it probably in Qatar it was probably really raucous there too, probably, and but it was raucous even if they didn't sell beer in London too. But they did do them in the evening, they did in prime time. It was definitely a made for TV kind of event, and made for being there in person kind of event, and it's very successful. I mean, they're definitely selling out the venues and getting a lot of people to watch it both online and in person, and so it definitely. And also too, they're saying that the athletes that we mentioned before really like it a lot because they get to race more times than they normally do. Is racing at that level is pretty sparse, and they get to do all 5 of these races pretty close together. Although Jennifer Valente was complaining a little bit about living out of her suitcase for so long, but at least it's on a pretty compact schedule, and also it's a pretty good paycheck, I think, too. So it helps them to make some money doing track racing, which isn't easy. Right.
Well, Jennifer, I think I read she was not lower than 4th in any event. So it's really the consistency that paid off. But I think Kate Archibald, also read won like 5 out of 10 of the events. So
she could be. She was more off and on for sure.
Yeah.
Like the first elimination race, she was like the second rider out, I think, something like that. So that
really
hurt her a lot. Yeah. But then even then though too, because she was within striking distance, and she was only 1 point behind going into the final weekend. And the first night she dropped, I think 5-6 points down.
6 points down, yeah.
Yeah. So she is, you know, isn't at her best, but she was injured, I think, too, or really sick or something too, and so she's coming back and showing that she's quality. But more importantly, I think for us, Jennifer Valente is showing that she's not certainly a flash in the pan, because she's been at a world-class level and world champion before in the team pursuit and stuff too, but she's now been at the top of the sport, you know, the very top now for 2 years. And
she's won all the big things now.
Yeah, so that's the important thing, you know, that she's shown herself to be, you know, one of the best, if not currently the best endurance track rider right now in the world. So that's pretty phenomenal, because Chloe Dygert now just had, of course, another surgery. She had a second leg surgery, and then she had a heart surgery. And if she can get back to full strength, then that would add another person too. Because when Sarah Hammer used to be the best pursuiter in the world, she would kind of carry the team on her back, and they won world championships in the team pursuit, but they never could win the Olympics. And if you get someone like Jennifer Valente, and then now Lily Williams also, who's racing at this level too, and then Chloe Dygert, you know, comes in there also too, that's a pretty strong team pursuit squad too, because the Olympics are not that far away. And that
just 2 more years.
Yeah,
less than 2 years.
That's a year and a half. Yeah, I actually just got a thing signing up for tickets today, and so I had to sign up for the pool to get in the pool, which doesn't open till I think.
You're gonna go see the swim event?
No. The pool to get yeah. See, and there's 2 different pools. There's individual ticket pool, then there's a package pool, and even though I signed up today, the pool doesn't open until I think the end of January and goes through the beginning of March. But if you're not in the pool, you don't have a chance to get tickets at all. So, you know, at least it's another step in that process. But it is happening. It's that imminent now that, you know, the Olympics will be here before we know it. And then it's funny, because in the meetings I was at USA Cycling recently, they were already talking about the 2028 Olympics and how they're so focused on that. So they said they're still focused on 24 and want to do there, but their real focus now is on preparing athletes for the 28 Olympics, especially in the sprint events. We don't really have anybody, men or women, who can compete on a world stage in the sprints, and it's unlikely anybody would develop in the next year and a half to do that, because you pretty much have to qualify this year if you're going to make it for next year. So they're already looking for the sprint events, certainly for 28, and then everything else too as well. But there's a lot of medals on the track, and so that's one reason why there's a big focus on track, because medals equal funding. So if you do well in any event that gets a medal, then you get more funding from the USOC. That's how a lot of these NGBs survive.
Right, exactly. And that the Olympics will be in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah,
2028. Yeah. So Paris in 2024. You're planning to go, of course, if you're talking about getting in that pool to get tickets.
And talking about news too.
Your master plan was to be in Paris for the last day of the Tour de France and see him race on the Champs-Élysées, because that is quite an experience that you haven't been able to witness, but not going to happen, is it?
Nope, going to finish in Nice, start in Monaco, I think, and finish in Nice, and for the last day, and it's going to be a time trial. So the first time that's going to finish the time trial since '89, when Le Mans famously beat Laurent Fignon by 8 seconds. And the day before that is going to be a very much Paris-Nice type last stage, which is on a circuit around Nice, and it always shatters the field in Paris-Nice and is a hugely dynamic race. So the last 2 days could be very decisive in the Tour for 2024, because that stage, everybody will be tired, the penultimate stage, and could shake things up for sure, as it oftentimes does for Paris-Nice. And then the last day being a time trial, if it's anywhere close between the top couple people, things could change up a lot. So it'll still be exciting. And so I have to reorder my stuff, because there's only 6 days between the end of the Tour and the beginning of the Olympics too. And we're going to spend that time watching, you know, touring Paris. So I think we have to watch a few days before. I kind of wanted to go into the Alps and go to maybe Briançon and see the Azores and all the other famous Madelon and Glendon, and maybe up to West too. But see some of the famous mountains too that I've ridden on before. But Carrie and Mathieu have been there, and they're gorgeous mountains. So maybe go to Briançon as a base, and then go down and watch the last 2 stages, and then either take a train really quickly up to Paris, or drive and drop the car off in Paris, and then spend 6 days touring Paris, and then see the Olympics from there. So, but you're right. Definitely got to change the planning.
Great plans. I'm curious if Paris-Nice will try to preview those last couple stages with their race to have a similar, like they do for the Dauphiné, where they have a couple stages that might be what they're going to do in a couple stages of the Tour. Maybe Paris-Nice will do that too. I don't know.
Well, the ASO owns Paris-Nice too, so my guess is you're right. At least one of those stages. And certainly, they already said the Tour is going to model its penultimate stage after Paris-Nice's penultimate stages, or final stage. So yeah, that's already a mimic anybody who's done that last stage, and that changes a little bit every year anyway. But they're already going to be familiar with those kind of roads. But then yeah, having that time trial, maybe at least part of it. If they might start and finish and just do part of the time trial course. But I think I saw today or yesterday that the Tour one's going to start in Monaco and finish in Nice, which I guess is pretty close by.
All right, I didn't read so carefully. I guess I thought they were going to have a traditional sprint in Nice, and they were doing a time trial the day before in Monaco. But so that happens, I guess, if you just skim headlines, right? You don't get the details.
Well, I'm more vested because we already planned our trip for that. So yeah, I want to make sure I got to have the plans devised. So. And of course, I don't. Things could change, but I think that right now they're getting bits and pieces. Like they don't have the courses and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But they are.
We got still the 2023 Tour de France to go through next year with the start in Spain. But I think are they starting 2024 in Italy?
Yeah. There'll be 3 years in a row they're starting outside of France, which usually used to be every other year. They'd alternate starting outside France and then keeping it all inside France. But now 3 years in a row they'll be there. I think it's going to start in Florence.
Tuscany area.
Yeah. So North Tuscany, Florence.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's interesting because it's going to finish near there too, because Florence isn't really that far from Nice. It's not that far. I mean, same general area, part of the southeast part of France.
Yeah, you could probably fit that area into Texas, I guess.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
It'd be a good guess.
Probably, yeah. Maybe Florida from the Panhandle down to Miami.
Oh yeah, probably. So yeah. Well, yeah, these are the little bits and extra news that's been happening in cycling related things. But I think the cyclocross though is really taking center stage right now, because last Sunday was the first time Mathieu van der Poel, Wout van Aert, and Tom Pidcock all lined up against each other at the World Cup that took place in Antwerp in Belgium, a sandy course. And the day before, was it a Super Prestige? I don't know. They got like 3 different series that goes on. The day before, Mathieu van der Poel crashed, fell hard on his hip, and hit his knee too. Knee. And was like maybe iffy not to do so well on Sunday, but sure enough, he showed like his old form, like he used to be several years ago, where he seemed to win pretty handily most cyclocross races he started.
And Wout van Aert
had a good start.
That was his first race, so, and we, and it went back and forth obviously, but Mathieu van der Poel seemed to dominate that rivalry for the last couple of years of the rivalry, even though Wout van Aert sometimes win the world championships on a race-to-race basis. Mathieu van der Poel seemed like he was getting the better of him almost always, and so it seems not unusual that would happen here, but at the same time they say Wout's just kind of getting his
just getting going, right?
Yeah, so
I mean, if you look at the road the last 2 years, I would say Wout van Aert is definitely like the better cyclist overall, or had better results.
He had better, he's had better years, yeah.
So, but Mathieu van der Poel, though, he's had some injury problems, of course, and Tom Pidcock, though, he looked pretty good Saturday, but he got kind of shuffled back at the beginning on Sunday, and never really figured into that result, did he?
No, and that's Tom Pidcock, he's obviously a super good racer and is world champion and lots of things, but he has had trouble in the past with starts, and frequently he's kind of gotten mixed in the shuffle a little bit there, and they said last year actually in the world championship that the beginning of the race that was super important for him, because he has had problems, and if he got a bad start that might hamper his ability to get out in front and win. But he had a good start actually last year in the race and was, I think, 6th coming through the first kind of technical section and was able to get away. But this time here, he had trouble and was kind of at the very back for a little bit and worked his way back up a little bit. But you're right, never really in contention. And so it wasn't that kind of head-to-head battle. But like you said, Wout van Aert did have a good start. And Mateo's
he was in the lead a little bit, yeah. And Wout van Aert still ended up second, right?
Yes, yeah. I guess it was interesting because I wanted to watch the video and I just haven't done it yet. But the article was saying that once Mathieu took off, and he only had like 15 seconds, which doesn't seem like very much, but in cross it's huge, the quarter lap maybe. So it's a big gap. And so he said, well, basically it was just focused on getting second place at that point in time. So it was you kind of, your mind shifts in terms of what your priorities are, and you have to race against who you're racing against. And so for him, a lot of times, then they said that he really did accomplish his goal at that point. He reevaluated, win wasn't within his reach, and so he just said second is gonna be my goal now, and did accomplish that. So it didn't have a disastrous race by any means, just not a win.
Right. Well, and then the riders who have been consistently doing well before Van der Poel and Van Aert and Pidcock came back, it's been Van Torenhout, Lars van der Haar, and Laurens Sweck, who's won pretty much all the other races between the Elie Iserbyt too. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Iserbyt too.
Iserbyt. Those four riders have been the best riders so far this season, winning most of the races, and now it's going to be them fighting out for podium positions instead of probably wins with Mathieu van der Poel, Wout van Aert, and Tom Pidcock back in the mix. So
you never know. Yeah, I think now that the big upset is if one of those guys don't finish on the podium for sure, and someone else squeezes in there, which did happen here. So it's like, it was Mathieu and then Wout, and then it was Van Herrenhout was the next one, who's been having a great season too. So he certainly was there. But Iserbyt, was all the way down to 6th. So it's still exciting no matter what, and you kind of feel bad for some of those guys. I think they have to look at their season saying, do I come in hot at the beginning because that's their opportunity to get a lot of points, especially if you're going for the overall, for the World Cup, which I think that's always Elie Iserbyt's MO, is because he knows he's not going to have quite as good a competition, and he can come in hot into the season and then kind of hold on too. But I'm not sure what the standings are right now in the individual. Do you know? For the World Cup and yeah. So I guess it shows how important it is for the non-hardcore cross fan, right?
Yeah. Well, on the women's side, it was Fem van Empel. She got back to her winning ways. She had been winning most of the races, but then Puck Pieterse started winning, and Sharon van Androoy's been up there doing well too. So it's all these young early 20-somethings that's been dominating really. Whereas up until just a year or two, it was still Lucinda Brand and a lot of the older, well, later 20s, not really older, but just more experienced Dutch riders, Dutch riders that were winning most of the races. But now it's been Fem and Puck and Sheeran. So that's I think it's probably a little bit tighter at the top for the women, and it's nice to see not one really dominating, but each time, depending on maybe the course or the conditions or how they're racing, we can see someone else winning in that side.
Yeah, definitely. The women is more exciting in terms of new blood and seeing different riders and having a changing of the guard. And the men's side, it's Nice might be the best young guy, and he's hovering in the top 10 maybe, right?
Right, Thibaut,
yeah.
Yeah, well, the U.S. National Championships are taking place there, up in the Northeast, is that right?
Yeah,
Connecticut, Hartford?
Connecticut again, yeah. Same venue, but different course than last time. So it was there a couple years ago, and they used an embankment that was up to, I think, a highway system or something like that, too, and it was a very, very steep embankment, and they got a lot of cold and snowy, messy kind of conditions, and so that was a huge impediment to getting a clean race, was where you rode that embankment and all that, and that's taken out this year. So the embankment's not going to be there this year, and it's a little bit different course, a little bit maybe a cleaner, faster course. The weather's supposed to be good, at least for the beginning part of the week. I've got an athlete going to be racing tomorrow, Gaylord Adi, who we've actually had on the podcast before.
Yeah, sure.
He's going to be racing, and it's supposed to be, I should double check again now, because at first it was going to be dry, and then all of a sudden they were saying rain most of the day. And so that would make a big difference, but still be pretty warm. So
for the elite men?
No, we're just starting off the week for Gaylord. And then it's supposed to be warm though. So it's supposed to be I think 58 degrees now, and 74% chance of rain with showers. But then it's supposed to dry out a little bit after that. But who knows? It looks like it's gonna be dry the rest of the week.
If it's gonna be a faster, drier course, I would definitely think that favors Eric Brunner, whereas a muddier, more technical would favor Curtis White. So
yeah, Curtis has definitely got the he's a little bit bigger person too, so a little more power maybe through the mud and stuff. But and even more experience. I mean, Bruner's been a couple years at the top now too, but not quite as long as Curtis too. But you never know. Someone else too. Who do you think? Is there anybody who's been having a good season who could surprise us?
Lance Haydat's raced pretty well, I think. I don't know. It seems like for the most part, Eric and Curtis have been the two best
guys. Yeah.
Two best guys, I think. Yeah.
It actually looks like Gaylord's going to get the warmest weather. It's going to be 58, and he races like at 1 o'clock tomorrow, I think, too. So it'll be the heat of the week for sure. But it does stay, like in the Hartford last time it was in the snow and stuff, too. And it's going to be a high of 41 on Sunday for the elite races. So, and a low of 36 the day before. So we should
not even get down to freezing then. Huh?
Yeah. The only day below freezing is going to be Thursday night. So it should be pretty good conditions, I would say. After tomorrow will be the hardest day in terms of the course being wet. And I've been to nationals, several times and stuff too, and the course can change dramatically just day to day. And so my guess is it'll get a little torn up at the beginning, and if they have people there that can help prepare the course, which they should, and do a good job with that, then it should dry out and probably be a really fast course as the week wears on.
On that, right behind you and your screensaver, Claire Hunsinger has been stateside getting ready for nationals again. I think she probably has a very good chance to repeat as national champion on the women, doesn't she?
She's got to be the heavy favorite. Yeah, I don't think anybody right now, if she doesn't win, it'll be an upset for sure. So no matter where she's kind of the class of the field at this point in time. Not, quite as dominating like Katie Compton, who won how many years in a row?
14 or something like that.
Something crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
But certainly she's, I think, the most consistently good U.S. woman racer right now, the person who probably has the best chance on a world stage to break into a podium, stuff like that on a World Cup race and things like that. So I think I'd expect her to get the win this weekend. But again, you never know. I mean, cross is a sport that you can have.
Oh, you can have
mechanicals
or a bad crash or mechanical. Yeah, anything can happen. Yeah.
Yep.
That's for sure. All right. Yeah. Well, we're just kind of ticking it off, aren't we? Getting through seems like, I kept reading so many different things. Well, David Rebellin, his passing was a big shock, a big news. They finally retired was a big shock in a way that, not a big shock, but at 51, he was still racing that, wow, he's going to finally retire. And then, oh man, what a tragedy. And then to be out training, have a truck take you down.
Yeah, probably a German truck with a German driver even too, and it was near his town, near Verona, I think, is his home area. And he actually retired from the road scene, but he was still going to race at a high level for gravel. He was really getting into gravel, and he was at the World Championships for the pro riders just recently, and then he was going to continue to do that next year. And he has a really varied career and lots of stuff going on too, but that was certainly a big thing, and they're trying to figure out, obviously what happened, and anytime something.
Yeah, because the truck left the scene.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a bad thing. Bad, difficult news there. Talk about gravel. Emily Newson, you see she's gonna transition from road to gravel racing. Gravel is certainly still growing and getting more and more people gravitating to that side of the sport.
Yeah, the big news for that, one of the things about gravel too is they're going to, on Monday, announce the national championships for the United States next year. And in those national championships will be the first ever USA gravel national championships. And I noticed like the Netherlands had theirs recently this year. So other countries are starting to do national championships for gravel as well. And we'll have one next year someplace.
Interesting. Yeah. And let's see. Oh, yeah. You sent me a link about Leah Thomas. That's news on the women's side where she's having trouble with her back, right? So much that she's decided she can't race for Trek Segafredo next year, even though she had a contract, just to try to get herself healed up and so she can compete at least at the U.S. National Championships. So that's, I think that's super smart, though, for her to not try to push through an injury like that and think long term, like the health for the rest of her life. Because I think there's probably maybe in the American football scene, players that push through and play injured and don't take care of themselves and just keep going, and they just wreck their body, and so they don't have maybe as much enjoyment the rest of their life doing normal things, just because they're all beat up from the football, and they could have taken care of themselves better. So it's I think it's good, Leia, to recognize maybe she didn't have a choice because it was too much pain or bothering her so much that she would concentrate to get herself healthy.
Yeah, on the football side, I think people are making a lot of money there, and they know their career is really short. So if you take time off in football, you may never play again, and that could be your prime money earning years. Where in women's cycling, Leia's 33, and she's just she's been at the top level now for several years, but she's just the women's salaries have starting to be more solidified and actually make a living at it and stuff too, but not like she can make a ton of money at this too. So there's a little less incentive for sure for her to do it. She's 33 years old, so she still has some good years left, and it must not be hurt too bad if she feels like she can get back in shape again in time for June. So I think you're right. She's just trying to be smart about it, and she had Movistar and then track contracts with World Tour teams. If she can also win nationals again in the time trial this year or this next season, 2023, and her back's then rehabilitated 100%, she probably is pretty confident she can get another World Tour contract after that. And so it probably makes a lot of sense, instead of hurting yourself, running yourself into the ground, maybe making this her last year, then maybe being able to have several more good years after this.
I'm sure. Have you had athletes have to take off a significant amount of time to rehabilitate injuries and get themselves to be able to train again properly, where they're not just working through injuries, but actually doing maybe a lot more rest than to heal?
Yeah, I mean, most of my athletes are not, at the pro level, but sometimes I've had them. And Rebecca Much was somebody who had a bad back injury that she hurt in a cyclocross race, actually, and then it bothered her for several years when she was still racing road. And then she took some time off, and then she came back and raced a couple more years of road, and then switched over to mostly being a trail runner at this point. And her back's pretty good, doesn't really bother her trail running, but she had to really work through that too. And it was hard to keep racing with her back being hurt, but at the same time, again, women don't make much money in the sport, even much less than men and stuff too. And so you pull yourself out of that top level, it's hard to get back and stuff too. So it's something that she had to deal with, and eventually kind of ended her career. And and then Greta Namus too, she had a concussion, and she took almost a year off, and then decided she just had to retire because she was still having some lingering effects from the concussion too. So it can be the career-ending injuries for sure, and sometimes you're not really sure if it is a career-ending injury. If you have something really significant happen, you break a Joe Theismann leg kind of injury, or Alex from Smith, Alex Smith.
Alex Smith, yeah.
Yeah, those kind of things too. Those kind of things, although it doesn't always end your career, but it's pretty significant. It probably would end your career pretty significantly. It's hard to come back from that kind of stuff. But there's oftentimes people that are, like you said, playing beat up. In cycling, it's always happening. I remember when Brent Buchholzer crashed in the Tour in 2016, and he was really hurt bad. And he said that if it wasn't for the Olympics happening right afterwards, and thinking that someone had challenged him for that spot, because it was only Taylor Phinney and Brent Buchholzer that year going to the Olympics, that he would have stopped the Tour. He said he was hurt so badly, it was really hard for him to even get up and ride and stay in the peloton. But he didn't want to risk having someone challenge him for the Olympic spot, and so he limped through the rest of the Tour, and then was healed up enough so he could have a quality ride in the Olympics and stuff too. But yeah, there's of course there's that famous picture, we might have talked about this last week even too, with the poster where you've got the soccer players laying on the ground who looks perfectly fine, and he says, "I'm too hurt to play," and then you've got the cyclist who's all chewed up and jersey and shorts are barely on his body still, and he goes, "No, coach, I'm fine, I can you keep me in," so cyclists are a tough bunch for sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what or how many cycling injuries, if you don't pay attention to it, could produce like long-term negative effects to your health later in life. So
yeah, it's Stephen Roche. He had his great year in '87 where he won the Tour and the Giro and the World Championships, and then he hurt his knee, I think, the next year after that, and it lingered for years. And he was actually hurt sometimes before that too. So he was one of those athletes that probably didn't ever. Only that one year was he really up to his potential, and then wasn't able to have the kind of career that he probably could have had if he would have been healthy the rest of the time. But injuries kind of did him in. And then Laurent Fignon, after he won the 83 and 84 tour, being the youngest tour winner at the time, I think, ever, he got a pretty significant knee injury and took him out for a lot of years until 89. So, from 84 after winning that one until 89, again, he wasn't at the top of his sport because he had some injuries too that caused him not to be able to stay in. So, yeah, I think injuries definitely impact.
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking more in the terms of like later on in life when after your career, whether it has a negative impact just on your day-to-day living, whether it's like, oh man, I pushed through that and now I'm going to have to limp the rest of my life because I didn't, have it treated properly. Then I pushed through more than my body could handle. So.
Yeah. Huh. Luckily, we don't have as much impact, certainly, as something like football, So when you hit the ground, you have impact and stuff too,
Sure.
And I know, like Bill Walton, he had knee problems forever. He's a cyclist, too, and I know his knees have caused him a lot of pain. But he used cycling to kind of rehab the knees, which is something that a lot of people do. But I know he's still struggled for a lot of years, and I'm guessing still now with some knee issues because of he's just a lot of that too because he's just such a tall person, and your body grows a little odd when you're that height and stuff too, and it's a lot of stress on his joints and things too. But cycling then kind of helped him, keep moving.
Yeah, cycling's been a big rehabilitation sport for a lot of people that had knee injuries, and it brought some people actually in to become a very good cyclist because they were turned on to cycling after rehabilitating that injury.
Yeah, Tyler Hamilton famously went from University of Colorado ski team to cyclist because he was rehabbing some knee injuries and ended up being, of course, a World Tour cyclist too. So that does happen for sure.
All right. Well, I think we've been kind of on a streak where we're not going as long as we usually do. It is the December holiday time. We're all pretty busy. I'm going to have to run here quite quickly, but you did mention before, I think when we started recording that we got some birthday list today, huh?
It's a good one for sure. Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to add? Any other news bits that came up that?
Well, I just thought it's funny because the cycling news, you say it's a slow news time for cycling, which it must be a little bit so because they've got people trolling the patent office records. And so they had something about SRAM innovations that might be coming up sometime in the future recently. And today I noticed that they have something about Shimano, where they're looking at, Shimano about to reinvent the rear derailleur because they're filing patents to, and usually that's the first thing you do is you file patents for things, then you spend years developing the products and it doesn't always pan out. And so you might never see the products, but the cycling news guys obviously are, looking for other ways to find interesting information. Another thing too is I know that we know B&B I think was in trouble with their sponsorship and
not looking good.
Yeah, so it looks like they're out. Riders are signing contracts with other people, and so we're wondering where Mark Cavendish might end up too, because it looks like that was the place that he thought he was going to be, and so
his ticket to get back to the tour and try to break Eddie Merckx's tour stage win victory. Yeah.
So it has to be a World Tour team to sign him, or somebody who's
one of those French teams that get in.
Yeah, exactly, one of the higher ranked ones. Yeah. So.
All right. Our birthday list is the 6th of December. And turning just 40. I mean, it seems like
exactly.
He's been retired a few years. When you think about some of these other riders still racing, Alberto Contador, has got a little bit of a checkered past, I guess, since he had some allegations and stripped of some titles. But an enthusiastic, aggressive, fun racer to watch and follow, and he's got a pretty impressive palmares as well. So Alberto Contador, 40 this year. Happy birthday, Alberto! And he and Ivan Basso, who's also has got not a super clean past either, have put together a team working together. That's pretty fascinating as well. And so their team seems to be doing okay. But
he's very involved still in cycling, and he's got some development
staying
programs.
In shape too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he set the Everesting record at one point, during the pandemic. So Contador, he's still super fit. And my understanding is he trains some with his team, and I think he's got a development program too that works with juniors in Spain. And so he's
excellent.
He's really super involved still. Yeah.
Well, number 2 still active on the list, just 2 years younger, Daryl Impey, the South African racer who I think he became the first South African to wear a yellow jersey after the Nice time trial when Orca Greenedge won the time trial in Nice back in 2013, the 100th running of the Tour de France, and I was there, and there were a lot of chants of South African cheering on the first yellow jersey winner from their country with Darren Limpy, who's had a great career.
Yeah, he's a guy that I've heard said that he either rides at the back of the pack or he's off the front. So he's kind of tough as a teammate sometimes because you can always count on him to be there when he needs to be there.
Like Steve Cummings kind of rider.
Maybe that he's just but he's a super good rider, and he's won a couple stages of the Tour, right? Just one stage
of the Tour in 2019. He's won the overall though of the Tour Down Under.
He's got a good sprint too, so
he's got a fast finish, right?
Yep. And oftentimes he'll be in breakaways with other guys who aren't quite as fast. So
yeah, and he signed through next year with Israel Premier Tech. Yeah,
and it's all indicators are that Israel Premier Tech is going to maintain the roster that they have pretty much in the funding. So he's pretty safe in that too. Yeah.
All right. Well, Lilian Kalmajan turns 30.
Yeah, he also
looks like he's getting up there.
He's won a stage of the Tour too, in 2017, and a stage of the Volta too.
Exactly, yeah. So he's a quality rider for sure, riding for Ajaccio.
And he's signed.
He signed through Intermarché next year. Oh,
yeah.
He's moving teams
for 2 years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, Andy Acevedo, 37.
Yep, that was another name I focused in on as well too. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
A lot of guys in their upper. Well, Kalmajan's only 30, but 38 and 40 and 37. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And when was his last year? He's 2019 was his last year.
Yeah. So.
Retired
well,
for years.
We look at the Americans celebrating today. Kendra Wenzel, she's 55.
Yeah, she's got a coaching business with her husband, and they've been coaching for a lot of years. So she's 55, and Renee Wenzel and her were one of the first professional coaching businesses really that were out there for, and she's been coaching for 20 years at least. So
yeah,
longer than I have.
Just 1 year younger, Elizabeth Sterling. She's 54 today. Happy birthday, Elizabeth. I see Thomas Gibbons, 33.
Yeah,
his name's a familiar name, racing a lot of times when Taylor's in racing. Sam Smith, 20, just 20s for Sam, probably a Labidby racer. Tim Speciale, looks like Speciale, 37 today.
My list has, because
right.
Sometimes,
we talked about this. You refresh it, you get a different in that top 100, especially the ones that haven't scored points.
Yeah, Blake Longerhair, but Tim Speck. I want to see his list name because there's a Tim in Chicagoland. I wonder if that's him. Sam Smith I see too from the USA as I refreshed it here.
All right.
If it's the Elizabeth Sterling, do we see him? Or
yes. Yep.
So a few people. Right.
All right. Well, we'll get through 310 now of the episodes of the Warren Cycling Podcast, closing out. We'll be having 7 years next March to celebrate, so it's a long time. Talk about cycling stuff. Gone through a lot of years, but we'll keep this going as long as we can, right?
Yeah. There's always good stuff, and it remains of high interest to us too. So
yeah. And now we've got our podcasts are going up on the YouTube channel now too. So.
Hey, I see. And look at the upcoming races. They're going to be racing in Costa Rica soon.
Tour of Costa Rica. That always comes up around just before Christmas time, right?
Yeah. So that's we'll have road racing again soon, and then of course the racing down under happens pretty soon after that with the New Zealand Cycling Classic and then the Tour Down Under. Yeah. Which is going to be happening soon.
And they're racing in Egypt right now too. So the CAC Nile Tour.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. All right, Randy. Always great to catch up with you, see what's going on, and it just seemed like there are a lot of interesting things going on this time. So, but we'll talk about more cyclocross and catch up with you next time.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Dean.
All right. Thanks, Randy. Bye now.
All right.